Hello, We Nation. This is Chris Pfluger again, your Chief Development Officer here at We Insure. And today's We Wonder is a little different. Today is a talk with an Olympian. That's something we don't normally do we? So it gives us a chance to talk a little bit about goals. We're actually sponsoring Andrew going forward. So Andrew's joining us today. And so I wanted to just set this up a little bit so we can talk about how this makes sense, what we're doing, and how proud we are of, Andrew is just an Olympian in general, but also his ongoing success and his push toward the next Olympics. So all this is pretty exciting. But let's start it off. Let's introduce Andrew Muskevich. He is a Penn State graduate, a two-time individual national champion in saber fencing. I've known you for a few years, and so I was very excited that you not only became an Olympian, but you kind of hit some of your goals along the way, and you're pushing toward the future. So welcome this morning to our We Wonder.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris. And We Wonder.
You got it. It's our We Wonder here, and it's great. We have a couple of Penn State graduates that are owners across the nation as well. So a very big following, I'm sure. But tell us a little bit, Andrew. You went to Tokyo, but let's take a step back and tell everybody out there what exactly is saber fencing versus other fencing. We'll start with that.
Okay. So it can be a little ambiguous in terms of someone who's just new to the sport. There are three different principles in fencing. There's saber, foil, and epee. And the one I do is saber. I'm not going to be biased, but I do think it's the best one out there. Definitely friendly to watch. And the difference is where other weapons, you can only score with the point. With ours, you can use the whole entire blade to cut down or use the point to score a touch against your opponent.
So I've heard that is the second fastest moving item in the Olympics outside of a bullet for any kind of target shooting. The blade of the saber moving around is probably the second fastest thing out there. So it's a blur half the time, at least on the TV.
Oh, absolutely. You're not wrong about that. It is the second fastest sport after rifling.
There you go.
So you can imagine how quick reflexes are with us and everything.
So it is fantastic. I know it's called like mental and physical chess, right? When you're doing out there, you're physical because you're moving yourself in and out, and there's a lot of strategy associated with fencing, even though it looks like on the strip, guys are moving forward, guys are moving back, but it's a very serious sport, and it takes a lot of not only mental fortitude, to get through this, but once you get to that physical level, it becomes truly a mental game, right?
Absolutely. I like to call it the physical game of chess.
There you go. And I've seen you guys, obviously I've been watching this for years, and it's fantastic to watch, but hitting that pinnacle of the Olympics is truly something special.
No, absolutely. I think I'm still trying to reflect on my experience there at Tokyo, but the biggest outtake is just being able to represent your country at the highest regard. You're at the highest stage representing your country, and there's so many friends, family members, fellow countrymen and women looking up to you, and you're inspiring them. And I think that's one of the biggest outtakes you can take from the games.
Well, the question is, obviously, does it change, the way you think about approaching? There's obviously, there's competition, right? And you've been in more than a few, being a national champion, multiple times and winning, a ton of gold medals. I'm sure the whole wall is littered with gold medals from different tournaments, but you've competed internationally many times.
That's correct. Yeah.
And that's part of the process of building up to the Olympics, correct?
Absolutely. So there's several international competitions and domestic that we had to go throughout the season to help us qualify to make the Olympic team.
Excellent. So international competition shouldn't be a shock for you, right? It's one of those things where, on any given day, right? Any given day you could be, at the top of your game and someone else, just lets you in, and all of a sudden you're winning, X number in a row. And other days, you missed something here or there. You made a couple bad moves, and you travel there for a couple weeks, and that's how it works. So, so going to the Olympics shouldn't be like a big shock, but I can imagine with the whole thought process of representing the USA and having everything on your shoulders, that's got to be a big weight. Does that change the way you approach that particular tournament because it's the Olympics?
So personally for me, it's a little, I don't want to come off too nonchalant with how I'm going to explain this, but it was a little nerve-wracking once I got into the Olympic Village in the days prior, leading up to the competition. But the day I woke up for the competition and I was on the bus going to the competition site, I felt very comfortable with myself. I think, listen, I already achieved my goal, which was competing in the Olympics. And so I went in with nothing to lose. And I think I did a really, really good showing. It's crazy. Like people like talk about how it's the biggest stage you can compete in and the nerves kick in. But for me, I was pretty cool. I kept a cool head. I knew what I was capable of, and there's nothing to hold me back.
Well, so we actually can really link a lot of this to our business lives, right? So as you look at it, I would assume that you're going to tell me that preparation up to that point helped you keep a level head and calm, during the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. With everything you do, whether it's, sports, your job, there has to be a respectful amount of preparation going into it. Without it, you're just going to be going in blind, and the outcomes might not be in your favor. So definitely right preparation and a strong mentality. Listen, when you go to the Olympic Games, everyone's there as an athlete. Everyone's in the same shape. Everyone's been going to the gym, doing their dues in and out of their training site. And it really comes down to who's mentally stronger, who's hungry to get that win.
So just as a side note, who won the gold medal this year?
Aaron Shalagi from Hungary.
Hungary. Okay. So some of the best fencers in the world are spread out, obviously, in all these different countries. So it's not just, there's one country that really dominates year over year, but I think Hungary has been pretty dominant, but in different weapons, different countries may be more dominant. But in general, so Hungary won the gold medal this year. Who won the last time, the prior Olympics?
Same individual, Aaron Shalagi from Hungary.
He's got lucky twice. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on him.
He's actually won the last 3 times.
He got lucky 3 times, so he's doing something. We're going to keep an eye on him for sure.
Yeah, well, this goes back to like talking about mental strength. A lot of really capable fencers go to the Olympics and they have a great resume throughout the regular season. But when it comes to the Olympics, the pressure kicks in and not everyone can take it. Whereas this Aaron Shalagi individual clearly made himself at home at the Olympics.
He did indeed. Well, let's go back to goals a little bit. So my question for you is, at what point in your career, whether it's middle school, you were going through high school, I'm assuming you've been fencing more than a few years, and then in college you started to become really dominant. When did you decide, hey, I'm going to change this? Hey, I might be able to do the Olympics as a dream into really a goal that you thought was attainable?
So I didn't think about making the Olympics until right after I graduated from Penn State. I knew there was a thought in the back of my head. I was like, oh, I can make it. This is something to try out. But I saved it to the last minute because I was so involved with what I was doing at school that I really didn't give much thought. But then the situation occurred where I graduated and I see my friends going into corporate jobs, looking for jobs left and right. And I'm in this limbo, strange transition in my life where I had to make a decision. Do I go for the Olympics, sacrifice some things, or move on and step away from the sport? But looking back, I reflected a lot on what I've done and what I've accomplished in the past, and I told myself I wasn't ready to give it up yet. There's definitely a lot more in the tank for me to accomplish.
So that passion for fencing and that passion for the sport, obviously you're the right age, right? So if you wait 10 years, you're not going to be able to do this. So it's either now or never, and that had to be a tough decision.
It was very, it was a very strange transition for me. It was tough because, it's easy to compare yourself to people left and right that are going into the more socially acceptable options, right? Definitely not giving your parents a headache financially. But yeah, it was something that I really needed to hone in. I mean, I sacrificed 3 years before going to the Olympics. Working several jobs just to help me financially support myself for my fencing endeavors. And on top of that, training. On top of that, giving up a pretty big part of who I am is being social. But I was just going to practice, training, and finding ways to financially stable myself for the games.
Well, I tell you, a lot of success comes back from being able to defer the immediate gratification of things, right? So
Absolutely.
You're obviously doing stuff where other people are out there working and having fun, and much as fun as working is, but going that traditional route, you went a non-traditional route and said, I'm going to be an athlete for this, and then you got bumped, right? The COVID hit and they bumped it a year. How did you mentally cope with hey, it's gotten pushed?
So we just came back from a competition in Luxembourg, and the huge phase of COVID sweeping into the US just started. And I thought this was gonna be like a 2 week break. I was like, awesome, like I can crack open a beer and just chill out for 2 weeks. But then 4 weeks went by, and then a month, and you quickly realize that things are going to be shut down for quite a long time, and they canceled the Olympics, or uh, lack of a better word, they postponed it. And you're stuck in this state where you don't know what you want to do. You're just continue training, but you don't know what you're training for because the Olympics are postponed. You don't even know if they're going to happen. So it was a big mental battle trying to keep yourself sane and trying to push forward.
That had to be really tough because I know, even students like in school are like, trying to keep focused, and we have, your entire world gets turned upside down. So just to be able to keep that focus in that period of time and still show up and be an Olympian and actually get there was very different. There was no one in the stands. It's very tight, a tight knit area, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about Tokyo. Tell us a little bit about your experience. You didn't get to see much of the city because you're in kind of the Olympic Village, but you got to meet some other people. Tell us a little bit about that experience being an Olympian.
Besides like COVID and the restrictions that were put in place, for good measure, because they did a really good job of keeping athletes safe. We were getting COVID tested every single day, and just the resources there to help and make athletes feel comfortable was a pleasure. I'm really happy with the organization they did there. But besides that, it was really cool. It was my first Olympic Games. I understand there was COVID, but just being in the village and just seeing so many other people, and I was lucky enough to like sit down with some other athletes and talk about their challenges and their stories, and reflecting to other people's stories about hardship, challenges they overcame. Just kind of it hits you, and you kind of reflect on it, and you can use it as a way to like push yourself forward too. If these people can succeed, you can too. You're in the same boat. But other than that, the food was really good. I love sushi. Sushi was really good in Japan. I met some celebrity athletes from the NBA, tennis as well. And it was just a great environment. It was like a university, but for athletes, just roaming around doing their thing.
So you told me before, really your dream was, and then your goal was, I'm going to make it. I'm going to become an Olympian, right?
Yeah.
And so that was your goal. You became an Olympian. You didn't medal this time.
I did not. No.
Okay. So as you go through that process, and again, it comes down to, any given day, right? You go through that process. Now you're at post Olympics. You head home. You have to make a decision. Like, am I going to really gear up again? Because that's only 3 years away, right? So am I going to gear up? What do I do? How do you reset your goals and your focus right after coming back from the Olympics? You took some time and then made the decision.
Yeah, before Tokyo, I told myself, listen, I'm going to go to one Olympics, and that's going to be it. Just find something else. But then again, when I came back from Tokyo, I reflected and decided, you know what, I really think I can medal. After competing on the high stage like that, I think it's like an addiction now. I can't wait for 3 years to come again and just be on that stage. But this time come back with some goldware around my neck.
That guy from Hungary's got to be getting old too. So we got him now. So that's the.
Oh yeah, I got his number. Don't worry.
Well, that's a strong decision, right? That's one of those things you say, hey, I'm going to do this. And the next Olympics, I believe, is in Paris. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you've got to focus on, hey, I've got 3 years. I got to keep everything focused. I'm working a little bit, but I'm really training. So you moved so you could train more frequently, right? So this is like a true dedication to your craft, right?
Yeah.
Just like everybody else. Like if you're really, really good at something, you pretty much give up a lot of stuff to become good, and people get to see you for this much time, and you spent years preparing for it. So a lot of industries are very similar in that nature. And so people see it as, man, you're successful. And they say, man, I saw your success. It was great, but it was years in the building.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you moved to New York so you could train with a lot of other, folks in there that are just elite athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I got 3 years of this. I'm going to make it happen. Is that right?
Yeah. So the last month and a half after Tokyo, I sat down and made this game plan. I found a job that is really supportive of me and to help me finance, for the most part, my endeavors, and then working with teams like you guys that's helping me to achieve some of my dreams and challenges is great. But it wasn't easy. I mean, I was trying to write down like the options and ideas, what to do, how to like come around, and A little help, a little support makes a big difference in terms of, not just me as an athlete, but other people, giving them the opportunity to achieve something a little more meaningful.
Well, I'll have to say, we've gone through a lot of stuff here, but really, what sticks with me is really the sacrifice, the focus, the dedication, really that commitment, as an athlete, that really encompasses everything America is really about, right? People sacrifice a lot to get to the goals that they have. And it's the same, whether it's been through a difficult time like a global pandemic, or it's just, this is what I want to do for my career, and I've given up everything else to make this happen. You pretty much encompass all of that in one little screenshot here. So I'm pretty excited that we were able to help sponsor some of the stuff you're doing. I believe the next thing you have that we're sponsoring a little bit is, in France, you have a Grand Prix coming up. When is that
one? November 11th, the weekend of November 11th. It's right around the corner. We have our first Grand Prix of the season. It's our first competition that we have, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, we want to wish you good luck for that, of course. And I know you had a little bit of advice for us. We talked a little bit about small steps equal big results, because when you have a dream that's, literally 3 years in advance, you can't rush that, right? It happens in 3 years, and it's going to happen in 3 years.
Yeah, it's important. It just goes for anyone who wants to achieve anything spectacular big. It's important to look at the big picture so you can remind yourself what you're going towards at the light at the end of the tunnel. But you have to make sure that you're making the small right steps to make a big impact to get to that final destination. And don't overlook those small steps. Every small detail matters. And it's something that one of the most important things I took from my fencing is details matter. Details matter.
I tell you what, Andrew, I think you've been inspirational to quite a few people out there. And again, we appreciate today joining us and tell us a little bit of your experience as an Olympian and your focus, your dedication. And again, we wish you nothing but the best of luck in France coming up. And it's a bit of a process to get to that next Olympics, but we are behind you 100%. So thank you very much. I think we may even have a picture we can pop up here from the Olympics. Katie, can we throw that up? There it is. There you are. On the strip, and you're fencing somebody who looks like from Japan?
That's correct. Yeah.
Very nice. So that's what it looks like when you represent USA. You have a USA on your mask. And so you've had that before because you were on the national team for years, but very, very cool looking at that.
Thank you.
There you are. You look excited here. So
it's like very much like tennis. After you win, you grunt a little bit, you show some vocals. Come on, you gotta show some teeth in the sport.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us today. We're going to be following you as you go forward in your pursuit of gold at the next Olympics. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for being part of We.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Thank you.
You got it.